Hi folks, Brian here with Embrilliance. It's snowing like crazy out in most parts of the country, so I thought we could take a minute and stay indoors and do a little bit of digitizing. What I want to do is a simple lesson on digitizing for the multi-position hoop. It's a really basic example just to give you the idea of what that would be all about. We're going to do a very simple design. It's going to have just a couple of objects and some text. And instead of the normal 100 by 100 sewing machine field that we would sew with, let's say, a Brother SE400, we're going to go up to our preferences and select a multi-position hoop. And in this case, it's going to be the 100 by 172 large hoop, commonly known as the 4x6 or 4x7 hoop. You can see the approximate inch size here in the field when you click on it. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to use 0 on my keyboard so that we can see the hoop. What you see with a multi-position hoop is two sections, and they overlap in the middle. So the top section, if you follow my cursor, runs all the way around, and the bottom runs across from this higher bar and down and around. And that area of overlap is really useful because it lets us create objects that interlock or work in the same space, and those can be assigned to either the top or the bottom positions. Now, digitizing with a multi-position hoop would be a little different than splitting an existing design. When we have an existing design, the computer needs to figure out where to split it for us. But with StitchArtist, we're going to split the design based on how we set the objects into one of these two regions, either the top region or the bottom region, and we're going to sew all of the objects in the top region first and then the bottom region second. You could do that opposite. You could sew everything in the bottom first and then the top if you chose. What I'm going to do is click on Create Designs, and you see the common StitchArtist Level 1 screen. That's all we're going to need for what I'm doing here. We're going to go and use Merge Design, and I'm going to pick out two things. I'm going to pick out a square, and I'm going to scroll down and pick out a rectangle vertical, and I'm using the Control key so you can see we've selected both of those, and I'll import both of those onto the screen. And in the design layer, you'll see that we've got two objects. I'm actually going to want the vertical rectangle to sew first, and you'll see why in just a moment. So I'm going to drag that up to the design, and it makes it the first object. Now, as we come in with our zoom and scroll up a little bit, we're going to take this rectangle, and we're going to make this a little bit narrower, and we're going to rotate it a little bit. This is going to be the handle of a snow shovel. You'll see in just a moment, and we'll bring that in line like that. And so now we have the snow shovel handle. Now you notice this area of overlap, this central zone. This becomes really important because it lets us layer things on top of one another in this overlap area, and yet the objects will still be separated. So here I'm going to take the snow shovel itself, I'm going to move it down, and I'm going to rotate that slightly, which gives me that nice angle of offset. And let's go in and edit some points. And I'm going to play around with this a little bit and add a few more points in here. And I'm going to make all of these as cusps. And what that lets me do is bring up some curves just to get more texture to this shape. That out a little bit. Okay. And now I'll go back up and bring my handle down to match him. Sometimes it's easier to select a line in the object view. Okay, so they overlap a little bit. And I'm going to make the handle a satin stitch, and we'll go down to our shovel, make that a fill stitch, maybe change the angle on that a little bit, And I'm also going to take the handle and change the color on that. Let's get something a little more to the brown, just so we can make a difference here. And let's go ahead and add some text, which we can do with our lettering tool at any point. And we'll type something in. Time to shovel. Okay, I will set that down there, and I'll hit 0 on my keyboard and see what we've got. Okay, the angles look a little funky, so I'm going to rotate that handle a little bit and position it better. And of course, you can play with this as much as you like. It's not really pertinent to the lesson at hand. I think I'll shorten that and maybe come back into the create mode. And here I've got handles that we can move on this. Let's take these top two also, make those cusps, and that lets us put a little curve to our scoop here. Oops, click him, and we'll just nudge that in a little bit. There we go. Now we have a design that roughly resembles a snow shovel. Again, 0 for the hoop. And let's say we want to save this for our multi-position hoop. Well, you can see this design, the column's going to sew first, and it's entirely kept in the top, and then this fill and these letters are entirely in the bottom of the hoop. So all we need to do is go over to our file menu, and of course I would save the working file. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. And I have a folder here already created called Split Shovel, but you could create a new folder if you want. Here in the file name, I'll just say Split Shovel, hit enter. So now I've saved my working file, which is great in case I want to come back and edit these objects later. And now I'm going to save the stitch file, and we're going to save it into the same place. And here it says Split Design. I'm just going to say Split Shovel and hit enter. And that's pretty much the magic. Now, when it saves, we've saved a split design. So I'm going to go and show you that by creating a new design page. And we're going to open those files. And what I'll need to do is bring my, my documents folder over into the page here. So let me drag that in. And you'll see we have Split Shovel top number 1 and Split Shovel bottom number 2 PES files. And you can see them here nicely because we've got thumbnailer working in the background. And so I'm going to open number 1, and you'll see it saved the handle along with a basting rectangle, which preserves the offset from the handle. Now, how does this work? Well, when you actually have this hoop connected to your machine, there are attachment points up here. And the top attachment point is position number 1. Now, if you remember when we looked at the hoop size, it's actually 100 wide and 172 millimeters tall. I know a lot of you like to work in inches, but we can't really do that because they're not quite refined enough for embroidery. And of course, all our machines are made with metric manufacturers. But the 172 tells us something. And what that tells us is that this hoop is 72 millimeters taller. So the bottom position and the top position are 72 millimeters apart. If I want to preview this, I can take this design and use my precise positioning, if you have it, depending what's on your system, and move it up. What I've done essentially is center this design in the top position of the embroidery hoop. Remember, I'm just showing you what it's going to look like. When you load the file onto your machine and your hoop is set in the top position, this will be centered already for you because of this basting box that goes around it. So now let's open up the number 2 file, and this will get set. Oops, it brought it into a new because I didn't merge it. So let me just copy that, and we'll just come over here and paste it. And now this is going to be 36 millimeters down, so I type in minus 36. And so you can see that's now centered in the bottom position. So when these two things sew out, each centered in the respective positions of the hoop, you have created a multi-position hoop design, and you've done it by digitizing it according to where you wanted things to go into your original hoop. I hope this little overview helps. I know it's a very simple, basic example, but that's where you start. That's how you begin. It's just get the idea of what you're doing when you're digitizing for a multi-position hoop. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out the YouTube channel, in particular the StitchArtist playlist, where we have a couple hours of instruction on the various controls in StitchArtist. Until next time, take care.